Well, hello everybody. I'm sorry a little bit late getting on the air this last Wednesday in the month of June. By God, next Wednesday is the 4th of July, so we certainly won't be here in studio, and you won't be trying to watch us because you probably got better things to do, and we'll have better things to do. So this will be our last show until July 11th. And I have to tell you, we've had a little bit of a snafu. I had originally thought that we were going to have one of the outstanding candidates for CD1. Lincoln Soldati was supposed to be with us, but I learned only this morning, kind of late in the morning, that he had a conflict and wouldn't be able to make it. Apparently there was some miscommunication. We will have Lincoln on for sure, because he's an interesting guy, and
it's part of our ongoing series.
Part of our ongoing series, where we have, as I like to say, an embarrassment of riches of outstanding candidates for the first CD district. And I won't start naming names because I'll leave some out, and they're all really terrific. And we've had a lot of them on, and we've enjoyed hearing their stories. And Lincoln Soldati has a wonderful story to tell about his life. I can relate to him pretty nicely because he's a lawyer of almost my vintage. And so we have some very young and dynamic candidates.
From the golden age.
And Lincoln Soldati is a seasoned veteran of New Hampshire law and politics, and with a wonderful personal history and lots to recommend him. So, Lincoln, sorry you're not with us tonight, but you will be. We will not hold this against you that you're not here tonight. I know these things happen. And this is, after all, as my good friend Mike Farley, who's sitting right next to me, thank goodness, says the most dangerous hour on TV. We do this without a safety net. That's pretty apparent tonight. But tonight we are going to replace Lincoln, at least for part of the show, with Arnie Arneson, who's one of our most popular people to be here with us, and we haven't had her for a long time.
Good night to have Arnie on, too. A lot going on.
And there's so much going on tonight, and she's so passionate about these events and what they may mean for our country and the health of our democracy, which I think is in some serious some issues about the health of our democracy in this country now. And we've talked about that because one of the things I really love about my good friend Mike is he's brought us a new feature called the POTUS Report and the Progress Report. And last week was quite a POTUS report, and I did not get here in time to see it, but I did see the replay.
Well, I got a little bit fired up, but
you got a little
actually,
bit fired
you know
up.
what? I feel like I probably even held back a little bit because that last week I was on fire, and this week I got a brain fever again. I'm telling you, it's getting just difficult to process everything that's going on and the implications, especially if, in all my life I've tried to pay attention, and it's so much to pay attention to, it's almost overwhelming.
Yeah, that's for sure. So I guess I have to ask you, have you got a POTUS report tonight?
I do, but compared to, the headlines of the past hour or so, it's probably going to be rather lame. Very brief. Continuing on the topic of these families that have been separated on the border between the United States and Mexico, the families in particular primarily being Central American families from El Salvador, Guatemala, et cetera, the countries that are really in strife, and there's really we could do a month's worth of shows on what's going on down there and why and what we could be doing and what we're not doing and what we're doing instead. But focusing on that, I think there was a ray of good news with the California court decision, which put some real hard deadlines on getting things done on this issue. Pursuant to that federal court decision now, any child who has been separated from his or her parents has to be reunited with his or her parents within 30 days. And we know of specific occurrences where parents have been separated from their children for as much as 5 months. The parent actually going back to their own country and the child still being in the United States. The court also said that in cases of children, I believe the threshold is 4 years old, but of the very young children, that deadline is limited to 14 days. So the court got it right. If you're going to separate kids, they have to be reunited as fast as possible, and 1 month is the outer limit of that. I do understand, I heard earlier today, before everything else blew up, though, that the Justice Department is going to be challenging that ruling with the argument I think I have to back up a little bit. You remember last week, when it looked like everything was going to be fine, the president signed that executive order with that gigantic signature of his, ordering that the kids would not be separated at the border any longer. Of course, there's been chaos ever since, and no one knows how that's going to work. But
that was a signature event. I can't think of another time when he has actually backed down and reversed the position he has taken.
I cannot either.
Because he thinks that's weakness, you know. And major thing is, it's number one, it's got to be about him, and it's got to show him as a person of strength. And here he backed down and issued an executive order undoing his administration's prior policy, at least to that extent.
But and just on your topic, he then went out at several campaign rallies, because we're in the primary season for a lot of congressional and senatorial campaigns. He went out and said that he is still maintaining the zero tolerance policy. So he's trying to camouflage the executive order a little bit. But the point I was getting to was that he has established a reunification task force, established for the first time last week, to come up with a plan to reunify these kids. And from what I understand earlier today, I heard reporting that the Justice Department is going to use the argument that the reunification task force needs more time than 30 days to come up with a plan to repatriate the kids so that they should be relieved of this 30-day burden, which what the end result of that is: kids stay away from their parents longer. It's just disgusting. But that's nothing compared to everything else that's happened
today is
with the
huge.
Supreme Court here today and the implications.
There's so many things happening in the news today, any one of which would have dominated the news until something even bigger came along. 3 Supreme Court decisions that on 5-4 votes. And they're very important decisions, and we're probably going to want to talk about. Every one of them would dominate the news cycle, and then we have the announced
not to mention, Bob, the
resignation of Justice Kennedy.
The tremendous upset victory of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in New York.
The implications of that are really,
over the number
really
4
something.
Democrat. I got to tell you, as someone who has been trying to ring the alarm bell to the establishment of the Democratic Party, it's time to wake up. The world is not what it was when you went to sleep. We've got to change our message, and we have to get a backbone. I'm seeing Nancy Pelosi and all these senators, squealing, but where were they? Where were they for Merrick Garland? They rolled. Where were they? Where were they against Gorsuch, the guy we got now that handed us forced the poison that we're being forced to drink now? The Democratic Party has been weak, rudderless, and lame, and it's got to toughen up. And the spark that's going to drive this in the Democratic Party is the Bernie Sanders wing. They're out there, they're fired up, and I'm telling you, they won in New York.
I may have a debate with you about
They
this,
won in
Mike.
New York. They are the people that are fired up, and it's their
I'm not quite
message.
as sanguine about this as you are.
I know you're not.
I understand it's
You
very,
must come around, Bob. You must come around.
Well, it's not me that's got to come around. It's great to talk about this outstanding primary result in the New York district that covers Brooklyn and some of Queens, I guess, or parts of both of those 2 boroughs. This guy, as you say, he was the number 4 ranking Democrat, a potential future Speaker of the House, and he got taken down by a woman.
A young guy at 58.
And he got taken down by a young woman who, up until November of last year, was working as a bartender. Did you know that?
I did know that.
She was working as a bartender.
And I also know that she worked on the Bernie Sanders campaign and was very influential in that campaign, learned how to campaign, learned how to win, and won. And I also know that she is running a campaign there are 60 other congressional candidates across the country that are running parallel, identical campaigns to hers. And we will see in those races whether what I'm saying is accurate or whether what the establishment is saying is accurate.
Well, here's my caution about it, Mike. Here is my caution. Number one, this is in the heart of New York City, which is a liberal bastion. And yes, I can understand that this young woman, very progressive, ethnic, all those things, had a lot of appeal to that neighborhood. So she wins the primary. And being this district, she's going to win her seat in Congress. How is this going to resonate with the nation as a whole? That's my concern. We have all these people like this young woman, and
Do you lack the
congratulations.
power, the strength of your convictions, the confidence in your convictions? Are you afraid that the people, good, right-thinking people that agree with you and me, are not out there? Do you think the country is that much against us?
I think they're out there. I'm not convinced there's enough of us yet. I am just not convinced of that. That's what's bothering me.
Well,
it's great to have
that's
this,
where we will
this
disagree then, Bob.
meaningful victory in this unique part of the city of New York, the unique part of our political geography here. But
She beat a congressman who has won 10 elections.
yes,
Well known, beloved.
yeah. Well, the Republicans had the same kind of thing a while ago in a district in Virginia, when a guy named, a professor at one of those conservative colleges down there named Bratt, I think was his name, ousted the majority leader, and I can't think of his name.
Cantor.
Cantor. Thank you.
Yes.
You came up with it. I can't remember.
Nope, I remember that. And by the way,
Cantor was, absolutely a shoo-in. This was what, like 2 election cycles ago. He was absolutely a shoo-in. I can remember rolling through that part of Virginia in the train, seeing his signs everywhere. And no doubt this guy's going very parallel experience. And
now we have Trump.
and you know what that did was help turn. Cantor was a pretty damn conservative guy, very conservative guy, and he got beat by a guy who was even more far out than he was. And I'm not sure this is telling.
Who holds the Congress now? Who holds the Senate now?
Yeah.
If that Cantor election was a bellwether, then I hope that this Ocasio-Cortez election is a bellwether.
Well, I hope it is, but I'm not so optimistic as you are that this is a good sign for the eventual issue of taking power from the Republicans in November. It's going to feel real good to the people in that part of New York City, or probably anywhere in New York City except Staten Island, which is quite Republican. But other than that, it's going to feel good to those people. But does it portend anything for the November elections? I'm not convinced we're there yet. That's my problem with that.
Bold or hesitant? That's the question, I guess. Bold or hesitant? And I am convinced that bold leadership, that a bold platform, that Medicaid for all. Let's get out there. Let's a minimum wage. Heck, let's start talking about a guaranteed salary for everybody. I mean, let's start talking about these things. And look, they can get defeated, but it's going to inspire people to get out and vote. It's going to inspire conversation. What we got now is
I hope you're right.
timidity
I just hope
and
you're right.
failure. They failed on Garland. They failed on Gorsuch. They failed on Clinton, and they're going to fail again on this one. I'm very discouraged with the leadership that we have right now.
Well, I understand that this is you're passionate about this as you are about most things.
Yeah, I guess I get
and
wired up, I
you
guess.
certainly have your heart is where I want everybody's heart to be, but I'm just not quite as accepting that this is the way things are going to go. I do think that the only thing that's going to bring down the Republicans and Trump, and I hate to say it, is a significant economic downturn. I'm afraid they're just riding high on this strong economy. But there are beginning to be signs that a recession is not that far off. And there's always a recession coming. And I hate to root for that because it hurts everybody.
We're certainly not going to root for that. Look, people vote their pocketbooks. I've never seen that as that's not my litmus test. That's not what I go to decide how I'm going to vote. Sometimes, you got to put others' interests ahead of your own. So.
Folks, we got a lot to talk about, but we're already being told, because we got a little bit late start here because we were trying to do some things technologically. We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to get Deborah Arnie Arneson. We're going to get her on the phone, and she's going to participate with us because I'm sure she's probably going to share Mike's view and do it with even as much passion or maybe even more than he does.
I think more.
So, and it's always fun when we have her. I wish she was sitting right here with us, but she's going to be available on phone. And so we're going to take a break and we're going to call her. We'll be right back. Well, we're going to wait for Arnie to join us by phone. She is, I don't know if you folks all know, Arnie's one of our favorite people, and she has her own fans here with us when she's on the show. And but she has an amazing home in Concord, in downtown Concord, that she's made just a delight to be there. And she operates as a bed and breakfast, and she has a guest arriving. She may be tied up with that right now, but we've left a message, so I hope we'll hear from her soon, because I certainly would like to. Meanwhile, I hope others will weigh in with us on the issues of the day, which are momentous and numerous. 640-3091, as always. And I wanted to go on to another subject, if I could, in my
Sure.
own.
You know what I'm going to do, Bob? I'm going to try to keep the passion level as high as if Arnie were here.
That's a tough assignment.
It is. I may
That's
have
a
a
very
heart
tough
attack
assignment.
before the hour is out, but I will. I'll see if I can keep the intensity level until she calls in.
Okay, I wanted to go back to a state issue. I don't know if we're going to get to city issues tonight, which we definitely should do more than we do.
Yeah,
But
we got. I wanted to. If we do get to, I want to. There's some things I want to talk about. There's.
Okay.
I think there's some issues going on that. A little more transparency might be in order for the
Well,
city of
I
Manchester.
invite you to chip in on that. But let me just go to something that I've been very much involved in, because I think people know I do serve in the Great and General Court as one of the Elite 400 at my $100 a year.
They name themselves that, right? Great.
I don't know. I just like to say that.
That's awesome.
And I've been, my third term is just about to end, and I've been serving on the Science, Technology, and Energy Committee, because I have a long career, as some of you out there know, in the field of energy and related to the fight over Seabrook and various other issues around the state. And this year, at the final result, we passed 3 very important bills to support renewable energy programs in New Hampshire, particularly our biomass industry. Now, that's a term which means basically you're burning our vast forest resources, or a portion of them. The low-end wood.
It's
We're
the
not
wood
burning.
chips that
It's the
doesn't
wood
make it to the
chips.
lumberyard, right?
It's the material that's left over when you cull the forest and you have your saw logs or whatever, and you have the low-end grade left. And we've created a market for that in having 6, now 5 small power plants located not just in the North Country. There's one in Springfield, New Hampshire. There's one in Bridgewater, New Hampshire, right outside Plymouth. There's one in Bethlehem. And these plants have been producing power by burning locally harvested, locally sourced fuel, namely wood chips from the low grade left after other harvesting operations have occurred. And these people have been struggling because they're competing with what is now, as a result of the fracking explosion by, I guess everybody knows what fracking is. I don't have to get into that. But we don't do fracking in New Hampshire, but we do bring natural gas from fracking to New Hampshire, and it's cut the price of energy on a bulk supply in a big way. Well, we have these 5 power plants. One is already shut down, and they were asking for assistance in the form of a modest subsidy from the state in order to stay in business. And a lot of us thought this was a good thing to do for a number of reasons. Number one, we do have a renewable energy goal that we want New Hampshire to meet of 25% renewable energy by the year 2025. That's been a goal in legislation for a long time, and we can meet it. Other states have got much more ambitious goals than that, but we can meet that. But we need to have these renewable energy resources that are represented by these 5 plants that burn wood chips be part of the mix. And number 2, these plants do provide significant employment in a part of the in parts of the state where employment is a big issue. I mean, there's a whole world out there of people in the red and black flannel shirts and jackets that love to go out in the woods with their skidders and things and bring this fuel to these plants. And it's a significant part of our economy in the areas around these plants, including even here in Hillsborough County. There's a lot of wood harvested in Hillsborough County. We passed a bill on this, called Bill 446, that would help support these plants at this time and keep this whole business viable, because it's very tender. One plant's already closed, one in Alexandria. It's closed. Whether it would come back would kind of depend on how it happened to this bill. This bill made it through the New Hampshire House and the New Hampshire Senate, and Governor Sununu just vetoed it. Just vetoed this bill. Now, the result of that, and I've talked with the person that represents these plants and did before our committee, 3 of these plants have already refused to accept any new supplies of wood. We were told that if this bill was vetoed, this would end the waste to energy, not waste to energy, but wood chip to energy plants in New Hampshire. One already closed, and they were told that without this bill, there would be more closures. Already we're beginning to see drastic effects because they're not purchasing any more wood for 3 of them. The other 2, I don't know how long they can go on given the economic headwinds they face. So we have that. Now, there's another bill that we passed, Senate Bill 4577, and that related solely to the wood-fired plant up in Berlin, our great, they call that the city made by trees, because as people in New Hampshire know, Berlin's our northernmost city. It's a small city, but it is a New Hampshire city. And, you know, its raison d'etre was the pulp mill, the Brown Paper Company. If you folks that have been in New Hampshire will remember that name, and their products, Nibrock towels among them, and they employed thousands up there. Well, that plant eventually closed because the pulp mills all around New England and around the country have been closing, and so what was going to be done with it? Well, that plant up there, that major plant right in the heart of Berlin, was reconfigured to burn wood chips to produce renewable energy. And so we were very concerned about the fate of that plant. There's something like 900 jobs dependent on these things, these plants operating in the North Country. And the biggest one...
Is that the aggregate for all of them, the big one and the small ones?
I think that may be, I'm not sure. I don't know whether that's just the Burgess plant, which is its name, in Berlin. I'm just kind of vague on that. But, you know, they have people employed in the plant and a lot more people employed in the woods getting the product to the plant to combust it and generate steam for electricity. It's the 75-megawatt plant. It makes it the 4th largest generator in New Hampshire. Today, Governor Sununu went up to Berlin and signed the bill that's going to provide some support for that plant. He signed that bill, and he vetoed the other 2. Now, this is kind of interesting because the governor has frequently said in his so-called energy plan update, which I call a down date because it was pretty retrograde as far as I was concerned, has said we don't want to subsidize and pick winners and losers. What has he just done? He's picked the winner, which is the Burgess plant in Berlin, and picked and made losers out of the other 5 plants that still exist in New Hampshire. This is just astounding. If he was at least bit consistent in his philosophy and his approach to these things, if he's saying, well, we don't want to subsidize energy. Well, Governor, I hate to tell you, but all forms of energy are heavily subsidized, whether it's nuclear, coal, oil, or natural gas. They all get massive subsidies from government at all levels, especially the federal level. If he really believed that, how would he take down or potentially take down, and I think it's actually going to be take down 5 operating plants that are providing renewable, locally sourced energy for New Hampshire and New England, and yet go up and have a signing ceremony in Berlin today for the one plant that he's decided should survive, or at least had be given a chance to survive. So I'm pretty upset about this because, you know, these bills were passed in our 2 houses, the House of Representatives and the Senate, both of which are controlled by Republican majorities. They were passed there, and yet Governor Sununu has vetoed the bill that would help these plants. Now, another thing I just wanted to tell you about, this bill, 446, did another thing. It not only was in support of these plants, actually it was not that much, but it was the other bill, but this bill would have authorized cities and towns to have projects up to 5 megawatts of capacity. 5 megawatts is a big plant, not compared to Seabrook, which is almost 1,200 megawatts. But, you know, for a renewable energy plant, that's a big plant. And our neighboring city down here, Nashua, has a very fine hydro facility, which is above the current cap of 1 megawatt. That's the current cap on net metering. They have above that. Dover, I was just informed by one of my good friends, a former legislator from Dover, that they have been offered a very generous either grant or very low interest loan of $20 million to develop a huge solar plant in Dover. But with the veto of this bill by the governor, that's to say above 1 megawatt power from sunshine, with this veto of this bill by the governor, these projects probably will not go forward.
So what are you going to do about it?
We're going to override the veto if we can.
That was my next question. Did you have the votes in the initial passage of the bills to reach an override?
We don't have quite, but it's not impossible to imagine that we could get there. And because this is a bill where there is indeed bipartisan support. As I say, a number of good Republicans from the North Country, not that many of them because not that many people up there anymore, but a number of them were very, very supportive of these bills. And to me, it's just an amazing and disturbing thing that the governor would say, I'm not picking win and losers, but exactly what he's done with his vetoes on two of these bills.
You're
and he signed the
amazed
other one.
that our current governor has an inconsistent policy in his head? Come on.
Yeah.
It's not amazing at all. We knew that before he was elected.
Yeah.
He ran on his name. Of the Sununus, he's not the best Sununu, but he's the one that needed the job apparently because the others are doing fine, and so he was put up by the Republican Party, and he's doing what he thinks they want him to do.
Well, anyway, that's my rant on the status of our energy policy as a result of action in the General Court this year, and two very significant vetoes by our governor, which is really, I think, stick a thumb in the eye of the wood industry in New Hampshire and the renewable energy efforts we're making in this state to move off of fossil fuels to try and get all the benefits. Not insult the climate with more CO2 emissions or methane emissions. A lot of methane associated with fracking natural gas. Meet our goals, keep these jobs local, keep the money that we otherwise pay to fossil fuel interests, which don't get their materials, their source materials from New Hampshire, keep that money in New Hampshire, helping New Hampshire folks live a life where they can be participants in our economy here and support our economy. So that's my rant that I got all ready to go for tonight, and I don't know if anybody cares about
I was
it,
going to
but
ask you, have you heard that Justice Kennedy is retiring from the Supreme Court?
By God, I just managed to hear that.
Mitch McConnell, Republican leader in the Senate, has vowed that the nominee, whoever he is, will
Be fast-tracked.
Fast-tracked and will be voted on by the entire Senate by October, before the election. And I hear a lot of Democrats saying, hey, wait a minute, Mitch McConnell, you said that you can't have a nomination before an election. That's not what he said. What he said is we need the people to decide who's going to make the nomination, and that's not the situation here today.
Certainly
So
is not.
I've been monitoring the radio and the TV, and I've been seeing a whole bunch of so-called Democratic leaders with their heads on fire, and drawing false analogies, and it's like, well, where were you back when he did that? What did you do, and where were you when he eliminated the filibuster rule? Let me tell you what. We've got Democrats that are running in Trump states that Trump won, and they are not going to vote against whoever Trump puts up because they're cowards. I'm becoming more and more disillusioned. I've been a Democrat to the core as long as I've had political thoughts. But you got to stop losing. And I think that there's a lot of people like me who've been supporting the Democratic Party for a long time, go out and vote for them every time. They're tired of losing. Yeah. So, you say, oh, the governor vetoed this great thing. Well, what are we going to do about it? What's the plan? Are we going to do the same thing we did last election? We're going to run all the same people. We're going to run the same message. We're going to run the same campaign. Or are we going to do something different? I think we're going to do the same thing, and I think we're going to get squashed. I think there's this blue wave, I think it crested last week.
I think there's going to be great energy in the Democrats as a result of all that's happened, including what happened and the big things today. Let's just get right to it. You and I have both had the privilege or pain of attending law schools, and And today, as happens every month at this time when the Supreme Court ends their
It's
their
a great
session,
time of year, isn't it?
they come down with the most contentious decisions, usually on the last day of their term, the last Monday of their term, which I guess is indeed today. And we had a trifecta today, didn't we? Mm-hmm. You know, the one that came out that almost hasn't even made the news was that they sided, they came out against public unions by avoiding the ability of these unions
Basically,
to require.
the right to work, quote unquote, so-called right to work legislation that we have been consistently defeating in New Hampshire year after year, session after session, the Supreme Court basically
They just rolled us, and they said that a union may not require non-union members to pay what's called an agency fee. They don't have to join unions. That's a great misconception, that unions have the power to compel people to join unions. Nobody can be compelled to join union. But if the union has a bargaining unit and is going to negotiate contract terms to benefit workers, they have to represent all the workers in that workplace.
Like it or not.
Like it or not. They have
Whether
to
they pay or
represent
not.
them all.
Whether they're freeloaders or not.
Yeah.
And this bargaining union, people talk about that like, oh, it's nothing. These are professional people. These are lawyers. These are very highly skilled people,
Yeah.
very knowledgeable.
For example, the law faculty at the UNH Law School, formerly Franklin Pierce, are members of a union, the professors of law. So these are the kind of people. Now, they will get represented now, but they won't have to pay to help meet the costs of that representation. So they become free riders.
You know, that reminds me, there was an old episode of I Love Lucy, when Lucy and Ricky were heading to California, and the Mertzes were going to go with them. And Fred Mertz could not imagine that he would have to pay to ride in the back seat, because that back seat was going anyway. So this is exactly what's going on with this. So you can refuse to join the union, get all the benefits of union membership, and not pay a penny. And that's what Republicans like.
Yeah.
They talk about, being personally responsible, but they will vote for the freeloader anytime if they don't agree with the other side of the argument. And they don't like unions, because unions are where small people get together to fight big.
Unions are where small people get a
Organizations.
chance to have their voice. And unions are a major part of the strength of our democracy. I know a lot of Republicans think they're just union bosses, that are exploiting the workers.
There are some of those.
And there are
There are
abuses.
some of those.
There are abuses in every system. But unions have supported civil rights movement in this country.
Job safety.
Job safety. They've been very important advocates for workers. You're going to be better off if you have a union backing you up against arbitrary termination or discrimination in the workplace. You're going to be better off. And this
Oh, and
crowd.
by the way, if you're building a building, you're going to get a better building, too.
Yeah.
Of course,
Yeah.
this was about the public, this was a different thing. This wasn't the trade unions. This was more about the, the teachers and the cops and the firefighters and the law professors and
Yep.
and those folks who, I guess now, it's going to dilute, it's going to weaken the unions, it's going to weaken their bargaining power, because they won't have the resources in that very bargaining unit.
Yeah. And in the private employment world, unions are down to 6% membership of all the people employed by private employers. So the only place unions have a significant presence these days is in the public sector. And this has just been, I think, a very, very serious blow to their ability to continue to be effective advocates for all the people that work in the public sector, even the ones that don't choose to be a member of the union. And that decision has been crowded off the news from the front page today
Because of all the
so
other
much
news.
else has happened. Well, I guess we're being told it's time for our break.
But right after the break, we can come back on the other two decisions and
There's
so much going
We got more to go, and
today.
I hope, frankly, somebody's going to call in and maybe challenge us or agree with us. Whatever, we hope you'll participate. 640-3091. We always like it when we do have participants and our
Yeah.
viewers out there.
Help us out. We're on our own here.
Yep, I'll be right back. Well, folks, this is the third and therefore, as ever, the final segment of this week's progress report. A very unusual progress report because our seat for our guest is not filled tonight. And I previously explained that, number one, we expected Attorney Lincoln Soldati, a candidate for the CD1 on the Democratic side, would be here, and he was not available. And then I thought we could have Arnie Arneson join us because we love her to be here, and she's not been with us for a while. But apparently she is otherwise occupied, although she thought she could at least participate with us via a phone link up. But we just checked again, and apparently she's busy with something in Concord.
So we'll have to
So-
rain check both of them. We'll get them both back on.
They will both
Plenty
be
of
back.
time.
We will do that. And so we end the month of June with just the two of us. So there you go. That's what you got, unless you want to participate and break up this duo a
like
little
a
bit.
lion out like a lamb, huh?
Yeah, a little bit. And we were getting on to the enormous amount of news we've got today, as is usually the case in the last Monday in June. There's a lot of news coming out of the Supreme Court.
You know, another topic, Bob, that I'm just thinking of, we have the incident with the intern using foul language at the president in the Capitol building, and
Oh,
it
yeah.
turns out it's from right here in New Hampshire.
Is it?
Yeah, Maggie Hassan's intern was...
Oh, Maggie Hassan's intern, yes. Yeah, well, the right wing can get all upset about that, of course.
Hey, I'm not going to complain about a young person having passion.
Picking on a kid and was improvident in their use of language for sure. But that raises another whole interesting thing. You know, I hadn't put this down in my notes, but I'll ask you about it. We had an interesting thing where, what's her name? Huckabee Sanders, the president's flack spokesman who does the daily press briefings, was not permitted to be seated for a meal at a restaurant down there in Northern Virginia, I think it was.
Yeah, a restaurant with dirty awnings.
Dirty awnings, and apparently she came in and there was a sort of a vote by the employees, and they decided they didn't want to serve her, and so she was asked to leave. Now, we've had an interesting debate about that, and right here in New Hampshire, I don't know what people think about that. And this also involves Maxine Waters from
came out with some
California.
very strong language.
Very strong language. And I don't know what your position on this is, but I tend to like what Michelle Obama said so well, you know.
When they go low, we go high.
When they go low, we go high. I don't like it when we get down and behave in the gutter fashion that so many of Trump's and he himself have behaved, you know, denouncing people, decrying the press as the enemies of the people, and coming after a judge because of his Mexican heritage who was sitting on one of his cases.
We certainly know where the lead of this particular type of behavior is coming from.
Yeah.
We've seen the example now for going on, 2.5, 3 years.
But this has
And
been
longer.
this has been a roaring debate even within my little area here, because my wife Carol and I agree that this is not good to do it this way. But our pastor, who's running for the House, thinks this was absolutely terrific to do this. Where do you come down?
I am struggling with that. I have not reached a conclusion. I'm still up in the air on it. I said I said last week, as part of my rather overly histrionic POTUS report, that it's time for people to stand up. Every single person in this country needs to open their mouth and give voice to their position, either for or against. This deal, the way we deal with these children, this discussion of denying due process, the absolute abject inability to understand the concepts of our Constitution. Why should someone, when they put one foot in this country, be afforded constitutional protections? Because the Constitution says so. That's why. It's not that hard. That question, I don't even understand it being asked. I'm going round and round. I know that there are people in my circle who are dead set that, yes, this is the right thing to do. Here's my thinking on it so far. These are public officials. These are public officials who have abused their power, undeniably abused their power. We are at a point in this country's history where I have taken the position that every person must speak up. So when you're in public, which we're all allowed to be in, that the public space is the public space, I think that you have some kind of an obligation to, if you encounter these public officials who have abused their power, let them know your opinion. Now, how do you do it? How do you do it? Something in me gets all fired up when I see those people outside of the Homeland Security Secretary's house all night saying, "No justice, no sleep." So that fires up my passions. You know I'm a passionate guy.
I do.
But intellectually, that person has neighbors who really can't control where, who their neighbors are, and they're suffering from that too. So I think that, I'm going to try to get to the point. I think, yes, you do have an obligation to confront those people in public whenever you see them, but you need to do it in a way with as much class and dignity as you possibly can. And I don't know how to do that. I'm still thinking about this, but, if you don't, it's like seeing a mugging and not helping.
Yeah.
If you're a public, everybody lives in the public. We live in a community. We have to protect our community. We have to surround the cancers and protect our community from them. And I really, I love it when I see, and by the way, the manner and the method with which that restaurant owner effectuated her effort, I thought was very classy. By the way, I thought that Sarah Huckabee Sanders was very classy in the way she received it. That's the way it should happen. Then, of course, she went and used her public, tweet account or something to make a public government statement against a private business, which I thought, okay, the class left the room at that point. And by the way, she might have broken the law, but of course she will never be challenged. Because the Justice Department actually is the king's lawyer. We're in tough times. We've got to get up. We've got to confront these people. And I think Maxine Waters, in her own inimitable way, they say, well, Trump, don't take him seriously, don't take him literally. Take her seriously, don't take her literally. If that's the rule, then that's how we have to do it.
Okay. Well, to me, the Trump administration is a terrible, terrible blot on our history, and it's what we thought were its values. But to me, I don't know, picking out the greatest sin of this president would be hard, but his absolute refusal to attempt to be a uniter of this country. I mean, even George W. Bush was hardly my favorite president, but at least he tried not to divide the country along religious lines.
Words.
He
the religion thing, I agree with you.
He
Yes,
did on the
was.
religion thing. For this president to be just a divider because he's only concerned about making sure his base is happy with him and sees him as strong, I think it's just despicable. He is the most despicable person we've ever elected president of the United States. He may not be the most crooked. He's got to go up against Richard Nixon for that title, although his ethics are not good. But as a person who makes no effort, none, to try and become the president of all the people, including the people who didn't vote for. He's president not of the Republican base. He's president of the United States. And he certainly does not act like he understands that, and I don't think he does.
What makes you think any Republican wants to unite this country? What statement, action, bill, nomination, anything from any Republican for the past 25 years of your life makes you think that any Republican wants to unite this country?
Well,
the Democrats, we had a Democratic president who for 8 years did everything he could to try to unite this country. He was banging his head against the wall.
Yeah, he used to say no red state, no blue state, just the United States.
When have you seen
look at the way his reputation is being trashed.
The Republicans want to limit the vote. It's all about power with them. They get politics. Politics is about power. They get it. The Democrats talk about policy. They've glommed on a lot of other very admirable things to politics, but they keep losing. And we got to stop losing.
Yeah, well, more people got to vote. That's what we got to do. More people just have to vote. There's all this furor about people voting who shouldn't vote. Yeah, maybe there's one or two in somewhere.
I'm not even going to concede that.
There may not be any.
Baloney.
But the real scandal in this country is the number of people that don't vote. And
why do you think the Republicans are playing this game?
because it's disgusting.
Yeah.
And people are disgusted by it, and it alone, this methodology of the Republicans
Yeah.
suppresses the vote, suppresses interest in public discourse, suppresses community spirit, suppresses everything good about this country and
Right.
this state and this
Right.
city.
Well, we are getting close to the end here, and we've still got lots more we can cover. So let's go on. I talked about the trifecta from the Supreme Court today, and that doesn't even get to the resignation letter that Justice Kennedy submitted to the president today, which is that's kind of topped everything that happened today with.
Well, it's got the longest
Supreme
reaching
Court.
impact. It's got the go on the president's website on it. I guess it's his campaign website. He's got a list of the 25 judges. Let's start checking those guys out now.
Yeah.
Because look, there's no filibuster. The Democrats only have 49 votes, and Joe Manchin
can't
is not
stop it.
going to vote for the Well, they have to stop it.
They can't.
Well, then they're failures. They have to.
They are failures. The Congress is a failure. The Congress of the United States is a failure. It's an abject failure. There was an interesting article in the New York Times today. I should have brought it in here because I would have enjoyed sharing with Mike. You know, the Congress is of the branches of government. Congress is number one. Article 1 is about the Congress. Congress was to have the power to declare war on behalf of the United States. That's gone. The president now declares. We talked about with this Terrence O'Rourke. The president now gets to declare war based on some vague congressional authorization right after 9/11.
Well, no, a very specific but inapplicable presidential
Yeah.
authorization. It wasn't really vague at all.
The congressional power to declare war is gone. And to watch this Congress deal with this president as he tries to do these brutal and inhumane things to immigrants, they complain about it. They could stop it. They could stop
No,
it.
they can't. They
If-
tried, what, 2 days ago, and they tried again today. They can't pass a bill.
Well, they can't pass a bill. But
They're having compromise bills, which are compromises between Republicans and Republicans.
Yeah.
Give me a break.
But, you know,
They can't govern. But they
the
can win
Congress-
elections, Bob. They're going to win elections again this cycle. They've gerrymandered. You know, there was this great blue wave. New Hampshire became a purple state back in '06, and then we kept it up in '08. With the benefit of Obama, and then when it counted, when we had to win the election where we were going to do the redistricting, 2010,
lost.
boom, we got killed.
Yeah, we got killed on that one because of Obamacare, which now people think was not such a bad idea. An imperfect idea, but not such a bad idea. But that's going down. You said that on the show last week, and I was watching you on the repeat because I wasn't here when you said it. You think Obamacare has been fatally wounded, and I think, I hate to say it, but you might even be right about that. These Republicans, they're just doing in the safety net every way they can. They don't want to help the people that need help. They really don't, except through this theory that if you give enough money to the rich, it'll trickle down and help everybody else, which, you know, as far as I'm concerned, the way to help the people in need help is to help the people who need help. That's what I would have said. So in any event, we're just agreeing again, Mike, which is not much fun for our viewers, I'm sure, which is why somebody should call in and challenge us. But I talked about the trifecta, and we've only talked about the one thing about the agency dues or union dues, as it's sometimes called, more properly agency dues. But we should talk about the other one. The big one was the decision that the president has the power to bar immigration from countries based on the religious beliefs of most of the people in that country.
See, I don't think that's what that case said.
It is what that case said. It is what that case. I disagree with you.
We talked a little bit
We
about it
talked
on the
about
phone.
this. You said it's just about presidential power.
My interpretation was that the president, it was more on within the four corners of the bill as written, which did not talk about religion. It talked about nation states and about the threat and about national security. Within the four corners of that, I guess it was a proclamation, that the president has very broad authority for international affairs, and that under that broad authority, there was nothing within the four corners, which is why they wanted to use the rational basis test, and which is why the opponents of it wanted to get into more the motivation and the effect.
Yes, the majority, and it was another 5-4 decision, as all of these decisions we're talking about were 5-4, and the critical fifth vote was provided by Justice Gorsuch, who only became a judge because the Senate, under the leadership of Mitch McConnell, would not give President Obama's choice of Merrick Garland an opportunity
He's
to have a
wearing
hearing
another
on a
man's
vote.
pants.
It's absolutely despicable, this naked exercise of raw political power to do this. I think this was just a horrible decision. I think Justice Sotomayor, in her apparently blistering dissent, I can't say I've read it, I've read about it, had it exactly right, that this was just a horrible, horrible thing. To ignore all the things Trump has said, that this was targeted to a religious group, the Muslims. That's what the target was from the day he first had his
And they
badly planned.
explicitly ignored it.
They explicitly ignored it.
But we're out of time. We should have started that one a little earlier, Bob.
Well, okay. I guess so. I'm sorry Arnie didn't make it on with us, folks. I hope you have been able to stick with us, and we will be back, not next week, because next week we're going to celebrate the nation's birthday and revel in that, as we always do. John Adams said when the Declaration had been signed, he predicted. He said this day will forever be celebrated with illuminations and
fireworks.
fireworks.
Yeah.
And he turned out to be exactly right. And we're in the best part of the world to celebrate that here in New England. So we will be back on July 11th, and I'm not sure whether on July 11th we're going to have Naomi Andrews, one of the candidates of the 1st District, or she's on the 18th, but she'll be with us on one of the 2 succeeding Sundays, and we will definitely be back on the other one, whichever it is, with a guest that I hope you'll find interesting and enjoyable to listen to. So I want to thank Brian and Paul for trying to help us out by getting Arnie on.
We gave it a shot.
It just didn't quite work out. So this is a unique show when you just get the two of us. But hey, I hope we haven't offended too many people other than the ones that we intended to.
And I hope we have.
Take care. Have a
Have a great
grand
4th of
4th of July, everybody. We'll see you after that.